In the world of politics, words are currency. They can inspire, persuade, and even destroy. But what happens when words become muddled, when sentences twist and turn without a clear destination? Enter the term word salad, a phrase used to describe communication that is often long-winded, confusing, and lacking in substance. This label has been attached to Vice President Kamala Harris's communication style, sparking debate and scrutiny. The term itself is loaded, often employed to dismiss or discredit someone's message. It suggests a lack of clarity, coherence, and perhaps even intellectual rigor. However, whether a particular instance of communication qualifies as word salad can be subjective, influenced by pre-existing biases and political leanings. Regardless of where one stands on Vice President Harris, it's undeniable that her communication style has become a topic of national conversation. This essay aims to unpack the controversy, exploring both the criticisms and defenses of her rhetoric. Ultimately, this exploration is not just about Kamala Harris, it's about the crucial role communication plays in leadership, the fine line between eloquence and obfuscation, and the power of words to shape our perceptions of those in power. Critics of Vice President Harris's communication style often point to specific instances where her responses seem to lack focus or meander into tangents. They argue that her approach can sometimes come across as unfocused, making it challenging for listeners to grasp her main points. One such instance occurred during an interview when Harris was asked about the administration's strategy for handling the ongoing crisis at the US-Mexico border. The question was straightforward, seeking clarity on the administration's immediate plans and actions. Her response, which spanned several minutes, touched upon a range of issues, from climate change to economic development in Central America. She elaborated on the root causes of migration, emphasizing the need for a comprehensive approach to address these underlying factors. While these are undoubtedly important factors contributing to migration patterns, some viewers were left wondering if she had directly answered the initial question. The complexity of her response left some feeling that the core issue had been sidestepped. In another widely circulated clip, Harris was addressing a group of schoolchildren about the importance of space exploration. She aimed to inspire the young audience by discussing the vast possibilities and future advancements in space technology. However, her delivery was peppered with pauses and repetitions, giving the impression of someone struggling to find the right words. These hesitations were noted by critics who felt that her message lost some of its intended impact. These instances, while seemingly disparate, have been held up as examples of a pattern by those critical of the Vice President. They suggest that her communication style often lacks the clarity and directness expected from a leader in her position. They argue that her tendency to circle around a topic without landing on a clear point can make it difficult to discern her stance on key issues. This perceived ambiguity has been a focal point in discussions about her effectiveness as a communicator. It's important to note that these are just a few examples, and interpretations of these moments vary widely. While some see her as a thoughtful and nuanced speaker, others view her as evasive and indirect. Some viewers may have found her responses to be comprehensive and nuanced, appreciating the depth and breadth of her answers. Meanwhile, others perceived them as evasive or lacking in directness, highlighting the subjective nature of communication and public perception. In the court of public opinion, perception is often reality, shaping our views. Whether fair or not, the way a leader communicates can profoundly impact their credibility and public image. When a politician's words are perceived as unclear or evasive, it can sow seeds of doubt about their competence, trustworthiness, and even their grasp of the issues at hand. This is particularly true in today's hyper-connected world, where sound bites reign supreme and social media has the power to amplify both praise and criticism. A single awkward phrase or meandering response can quickly go viral, shaping public perception before a more nuanced explanation has a chance to take hold. For Vice President Harris, the word salad label presents a unique challenge. It feeds into a broader narrative, often propagated by her political opponents, that she is unprepared for the role she occupies and lacks the intellectual depth to navigate the complexities of her position. These criticisms can have tangible consequences. They can erode public trust, diminish her effectiveness as a communicator, and ultimately hinder her ability to advance her policy agenda. In a political landscape where every word is dissected and scrutinized, the stakes of clear and effective communication have never been higher. Section 4. Through different lenses, supporters decode the Harris Code. While critics see evasion and lack of clarity, supporters of Vice President Harris view her communication style through a different lens. They believe that her approach is often misunderstood and misrepresented by those who do not take the time to delve deeper into her words. They argue that what some perceive as word salad is actually a reflection of her nuanced and thoughtful approach to complex issues. Her supporters see her as someone who carefully considers all aspects of a problem before speaking, ensuring that her responses are well-rounded and inclusive. They point out that she often takes time to acknowledge the multifaceted nature of a problem before offering solutions, a style that may not lend itself to snappy sound bites, but demonstrates a depth of understanding. This method, they argue, is more reflective of real-world problem-solving, which is rarely straightforward. A style that may not lend itself to snappy sound bites, but demonstrates a depth of understanding. Her supporters appreciate this depth, seeing it as a sign of her commitment to addressing issues comprehensively rather than superficially. Furthermore, supporters contend that Harris's communication style is more relatable to everyday Americans. They feel that her way of speaking, which includes pauses and informal language, resonates with people who are tired of overly polished and rehearsed political rhetoric. They argue that her occasional pauses and informal language make her appear more genuine and less rehearsed than some of her polished counterparts. This perceived authenticity is seen as a refreshing change in the political landscape. In an age of scripted speeches and carefully curated public personas, this perceived authenticity can be a powerful asset. It allows her to connect with voters on a more personal level, making her seem more approachable and trustworthy. This perceived authenticity can be a powerful asset. Supporters believe that this quality helps her stand out in a crowded political field, where many politicians are seen as out of touch with the average citizen. Some have also suggested that the criticism leveled at Harris's communication style is rooted in sexism and racism. They argue that her detractors often hold her to unfair standards that are not applied to her male or white counterparts. They argue that women and people of color in positions of power are often held to different standards than their white male counterparts. This double standard can make it more challenging for leaders like Harris to be judged fairly on their merits. What might be praised as thoughtful or deliberate in a man could be dismissed as unclear or unfocused in a woman. This discrepancy highlights the ongoing challenges that women and people of color face in achieving equal recognition and respect in the political arena. Whether or not one agrees with these assessments, it's crucial to acknowledge the role that identity and representation play in shaping our perceptions of political leaders. Our biases and experiences inevitably color how we interpret their words and actions. It's crucial to acknowledge the role that identity and representation play in shaping our perceptions of political leaders. Recognizing these influences can help us better understand the diverse perspectives that shape our political discourse. The way we interpret a message is inevitably influenced by our own experiences, biases, and cultural lenses. By being aware of these factors, we can strive for a more nuanced and empathetic understanding of our leaders and their communication styles. Section 5. A History of Heat Harris and Law Enforcement. The intersection of race, justice, and law enforcement has been a defining theme throughout Vice President Harris's career. Her journey through the legal and political landscape has been marked by both praise and criticism, reflecting the complexities of her roles and the evolving nature of public opinion. As a former prosecutor and Attorney General of California, she has a complex and at times controversial record on criminal justice issues. Her tenure in these roles has been scrutinized from multiple angles, with each decision she made being dissected by both supporters and detractors. Her supporters point to her work reforming sentencing guidelines, advocating for body cameras, and implementing implicit bias training for police officers as evidence of her commitment to progressive reforms. They argue that these initiatives have laid the groundwork for more accountable and transparent law enforcement practices, and implementing implicit bias training for police officers as evidence of her commitment to progressive reforms. These measures, they believe, are crucial steps towards addressing systemic issues within the criminal justice system. They view her as a pragmatic reformer who understands the complexities of the criminal justice system from the inside out. Her ability to navigate these complexities, they argue, makes her uniquely qualified to push for meaningful change. However, her critics argue that her record as a prosecutor tells a different story. They contend that her actions often contradicted her progressive rhetoric, leading to a sense of mistrust among some communities. They point to instances where she defended California's death penalty law and resisted calls to investigate police shootings as evidence of a more traditional law and order approach. These decisions, they argue, have had lasting impacts on the communities affected, and resisted calls to investigate police shootings as evidence of a more traditional law and order approach. This has led to a perception that she was more aligned with maintaining the status quo rather than challenging it. These critics argue that her rhetoric on criminal justice reform often rings hollow in light of her past actions. They believe that her past decisions have created a gap between her words and her deeds. One particularly contentious issue has been Harris's stance on police misconduct. Her handling of these cases has been a focal point for both her supporters and her critics. As Attorney General, she faced criticism for her handling of several high-profile police shootings, with some activists accusing her of being too quick to defend law enforcement officers. This has been a significant point of contention in evaluating her legacy. With some activists accusing her of being too quick to defend law enforcement officers, this perception has fueled ongoing debates about her true stance on police accountability. These criticisms have resurfaced during her time as Vice President, particularly in the wake of George Floyd's murder and the subsequent nationwide protests against police brutality. The public's demand for justice and accountability has brought her past record back into the spotlight, and the subsequent nationwide protests against police brutality. These events have reignited discussions about her previous decisions and their implications for her current role. Harris has acknowledged the need for police reform and has spoken out forcefully against systemic racism in law enforcement. She has emphasized the importance of addressing these issues head-on to create a more just and equitable society, and has spoken out forcefully against systemic racism in law enforcement. Her speeches and public statements have highlighted her commitment to tackling these deep-rooted problems. However, her past record continues to be a source of tension and debate, highlighting the challenges of reconciling progressive rhetoric with a history rooted in the traditional criminal justice system. This ongoing debate underscores the complexities of her career and the broader struggle for criminal justice reform, highlighting the challenges of reconciling progressive rhetoric with a history rooted in the traditional criminal justice system. As the conversation around law enforcement and justice continues to evolve, Harris's record remains a pivotal point of discussion.
So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and let's turn the page on a new adventure together. Get ready to experience books like never before, only on VBook 360. Like, comment, and share to support the channel and keep the video magic alive. Thank you for stopping by. And remember, every video has a story, and every story deserves to be shared. See you in the next video.